Please, somebody help me. My child, he needs help. Is there a doctor nearby?
Adaeze pressed her palm against her daughter's forehead and felt the fever burning through her skin like hot coals from the blacksmith's forge. Little Chioma had been sick for 3 days now, her small body shaking with chills one moment and drenched in sweat the next. The child's lips were cracked and dry, and her breathing came in shallow gasps that made Adaeze's heart clench with fear. "Mama, I'm cold," Chioma whispered, though her skin was on fire. Adaeze pulled the thin wrapper tighter around her daughter's trembling body and fought back tears. She had already tried every herb she knew: bitter leaf tea, scent leaf paste, even the bark from the sacred Irako tree that her grandmother had taught her to use. Nothing worked. Chioma was getting worse, and Adaeze knew exactly what she needed. The medicine man in the next village had cured children with this same fever before, but his remedies required payment. Real payment. She looked across their small compound to where her husband Obi sat under the mango tree, carving a piece of wood with his knife. He had been sitting there for hours, seemingly unbothered by their daughter's suffering. The sight of his calm face made something dark and angry twist in Adaeze's stomach. "Obi," she called out, trying to keep her voice steady. "We need to take Chioma to the medicine man. Today. She's getting worse." Obi didn't look up from his carving. "The medicine man wants 3 cowrie shells for his treatment." "Where do you expect me to find 3 cowrie shells, woman? Do you think they grow on trees like mangoes?" "Our daughter is dying." Adaeze's voice cracked. "She needs help now, not tomorrow, not next week. Now." Finally, Obi raised his eyes to meet hers. His face was hard, carved from stone just like the wood in his hands. "I am a poor man, Adaeze. You knew this when you married me. I work hard every day in the fields, but the harvest has been bad. The rains came late. What do you want me to do? Should I steal? Should I become a thief for 3 cowrie shells?" Adaeze felt hot tears spill down her cheeks. "I'm not asking you to steal. I'm asking you to save our child. Sell something. Borrow from your brother. Do anything, but please, Obi, please help her." Obi stood up slowly, brushing wood shavings from his wrapper. He walked toward her, and for a moment, Adaeze hoped he had changed his mind. But when he reached her, his expression hadn't softened at all. "I have nothing to sell. My brother has his own family to feed. We will pray to the ancestors, and if it is Chioma's destiny to live, she will live. If not..." He didn't finish the sentence. Adaeze stared at her husband in disbelief. How could this be the same man who had courted her with sweet words and promises? The man who had sworn before the elders that he would protect and provide for their family? That man seemed like a stranger now, replaced by this cold person who could watch his own daughter suffer and do nothing. "You are her father," Adaeze said quietly, her voice trembling with rage and despair. What kind of father refuses to save his child? What kind of wife questions her husband's decisions? Obi shot back. "I have spoken. We have no money for the medicine man. That is final." He turned and walked away, leaving Adaeze standing there with her heart breaking into 1,000 pieces. She looked down at Chioma, who had fallen into a fitful sleep, her small chest rising and falling with difficulty. In that moment, Adaeze made a decision. If her husband wouldn't save their daughter, then she would find a way to do it herself. The next morning, before the cock crowed, Adaeze wrapped what little jewelry she had in a cloth, 2 copper bangles her mother had given her, and a small brass anklet. They weren't worth much, but perhaps she could trade them for something, anything that might help. She also took the clay pot where she had been saving small coins from selling her vegetables at the market. It wasn't enough for the medicine man, but it was a start. She left Chioma sleeping under her grandmother's watch and set out for the market, hoping against hope that she might find someone willing to help. The village was just waking up, smoke rising from cooking fires, women beginning to sweep their compounds. Everyone was starting their normal day, while Adaeze's world was falling apart. At the market, she approached several traders, explaining her situation. Most shook their heads sympathetically but offered nothing. One woman, old Mama Nkechi, looked at her jewelry and sighed. "These are beautiful, my daughter, but they're not worth 3 cowrie shells. Maybe 1 if you're lucky." The medicine man won't accept anything less than his full price. He never does. Adaeze felt her last bit of hope crumbling. She was about to break down completely when she heard a familiar voice behind her. Adaeze? Is that you? She turned to see Ikenna, Obi's younger brother. He was dressed better than she remembered, his wrapper made of good cloth, his sandals new. He looked prosperous, healthy, nothing like the struggling farmer Obi always claimed he was. Ikenna, she said, relief flooding through her. Thank the gods. I need your help. Chioma is very sick, and Obi says he cannot afford the medicine man. Can you lend us 3 cowrie shells? I'll pay you back, I swear it. I'll work, I'll do anything. The expression on Ikenna's face stopped her cold. He looked confused, then angry. What do you mean Obi cannot afford it? He borrowed 10 cowrie shells from me just 2 months ago. He said it was for farm equipment, but he should have more than enough by now. Where is all his money going? Adaeze felt the ground shift beneath her feet. 10 cowrie shells? Obi borrowed 10 cowrie shells from you. Yes. And that's not counting what he makes from his other ventures. Ikenna studied her face carefully. Adaeze, what is going on? You really don't know, do you? Know what? Her voice was barely a whisper. Ikenna hesitated, then took her arm and led her away from the crowd. When they were alone, he spoke quietly. Your husband is not a poor man, Adaeze. He trades cola nuts with merchants from the coast. He's been doing it for years. Everyone in the neighboring villages knows this. How can you not know? The world spun around Adaeze. Her husband, trading with coastal merchants? Making real money while he claimed they were too poor to buy medicine for their dying daughter? It couldn't be true. It couldn't be. But looking at Ikenna's serious face, she knew he wasn't lying. Everything suddenly made terrible sense. Obi's mysterious trips to other villages, the new tools that appeared in his shed, the way he always seemed to have money for palm wine with his friends, but nothing for his family's needs. Where does he keep this money? Adaeze asked, her voice hard as iron. I don't know. But Adaeze, you must be careful. If Obi is hiding this from you... She didn't wait to hear the rest. Adaeze turned and ran from the market, her mind racing with betrayal and fury and desperate hope. If Obi had money, she would find it. And she would use it to save her daughter, no matter what her husband said. The truth was waiting for her at home. She just had to be brave enough to uncover it. Adaze's hands shook as she approached their compound. The sun was climbing higher now, and she could hear Chioma's weak coughs from inside the hut. Her mother-in-law, Mama Obi, sat outside grinding pepper, her ancient face creased with worry. How is she? Adaeze asked, trying to keep her voice calm. The same, my daughter. Perhaps worse. Have you found help? Not yet, Mama. But I will. Is Obi here? No, he left for the farm shortly after you went to market. He won't be back until evening. The old woman paused, studying Adaze's face. You look strange, child. What has happened? Adaeze forced a smile. Nothing, Mama. I just need to rest for a moment. She went inside the hut and knelt beside Chioma, placing a cool cloth on her daughter's burning forehead. The child's eyes fluttered open briefly, unfocused and glassy with fever. Mama? She breathed. Sho, my precious one. Mama is here. You're going to be fine. I promise you. Adaeze kissed her daughter's hot cheek, then stood up with new determination. If what Ikenna said was true, Obi had been deceiving her for years. And if he was hiding money while their daughter died, Adaeze had every right to find it. She looked around their small hut, at the sleeping mats rolled in the corner, the cooking pots stacked neatly, the wooden chest where they kept their few clothes. Where would a man hide cowrie shells? She started with the obvious places. The wooden chest revealed nothing but old wrappers and Obi's spare farming clothes. She checked inside the clay water pots, behind the hanging baskets, even in the thatched roof, where sometimes people hid small valuables. Nothing. Adaeze sat back on her heels, frustrated. Maybe Ikenna was wrong. Maybe Obi really was poor, and his brother was mistaken. But no, Ikenna had no reason to lie. And she had seen the truth in his eyes. She looked at their sleeping space, the two mats pushed together where she and Obi slept each night. On Obi's side, there was a thin mat and a small wooden headrest. Nothing else. Or was there? Adaeze moved to Obi's sleeping mat and lifted it. Underneath was just the hard-packed earth floor, swept clean as always. She was about to give up when she noticed something odd. In one corner, the earth looked slightly different, darker, more recently disturbed. Her heart began to pound. She ran outside and grabbed the small digging stick she used for her garden, then returned to the hut. Checking to make sure Chioma was still sleeping, Adaeze knelt and began to carefully scrape at the suspicious spot. The earth came away easily, too easily, as if it had been dug up and replaced many times before. Her digging stick hit something solid. Not stone, something that made a hollow sound. Adaeze's breath caught in her throat as she dug faster, her fingers joining the stick, pulling away handfuls of earth. And then she saw it, a large clay pot, buried beneath her husband's sleeping place. The mouth was sealed with beeswax and cloth. With trembling hands, Adaeze pulled the pot from its hiding place and broke the seal. The sight that greeted her made her gasp out loud. Cowrie shells. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. They filled the pot to the brim, their white and cream-colored surfaces gleaming in the dim light of the hut. Adaeze had never seen so many cowrie shells in one place in her entire life. This wasn't just enough to buy medicine for Chioma. This was wealth. Real wealth. She reached into the pot with shaking hands, the shells cool and smooth against her skin. How long had Obi been collecting these? How many harvests, how many trades, how many lies had it taken to fill this pot? And all while he told her they were too poor to afford meat for soup, too poor to buy new clothes for Chioma, too poor to save their daughter's life. Adaeze's shock turned to rage, a fury so intense it made her vision blur. She dug her hands deeper into the shells, and her fingers touched something else, another pot, smaller, nestled at the bottom. She pulled it out and opened it. More shells. And beneath that, another pot. And another. 30 bags worth of cowrie shells in total, carefully hidden beneath the place where Obi laid his head every night. Enough to buy medicine for 100 sick children. Enough to build a new house, buy farmland, live like chiefs. And he had kept it all secret while watching their daughter suffer. Adaeze? What are you doing? She whirled around to find Mama Obi standing in the doorway, her old eyes wide with shock as she stared at the cowrie shells spread across the floor. Mama, Adaeze said, her voice shaking. Did you know about this? Did you know your son was hiding all this money? The old woman's face crumpled. She walked slowly into the hut and sank to the ground, her hand reaching out to touch the shells as if she couldn't believe they were real. I suspected something, Mama Obi said quietly. He always had money for certain things, but never for family needs. He would leave the village for days and return looking satisfied, but he never spoke of his business. I asked him once, and he told me to mind my place. I am his mother, but I am also just a woman in his house. I had no power to demand answers. He let Chioma get sicker and sicker, Adaeze said, tears streaming down her face. He looked me in the eyes and said he had nothing. He made me beg. He made me feel like a burden for asking him to save our child. All while this was buried under our bed. Mama Obi reached out and took Adaeze's hand. The old woman's eyes were filled with sorrow and shame. My son has become someone I do not recognize. His father would be ashamed. What will you do, my daughter? Adaeze looked at the cowrie shells, then at Chioma's small form lying on the mat, struggling for each breath. Her decision was already made. I'm taking what I need for the medicine man. And then, she paused, her jaw setting with determination. Then I'm going to find out exactly what kind of man I married. She selected 3 cowrie shells from the pile and wrapped them carefully in a cloth. Then, on impulse, she took 3 more. If Obi had lied about this, what else had he lied about? She needed to be prepared for anything. Stay with Chioma, Mama. I'll be back before nightfall with the medicine. And when Obi returns, the old woman asked, her voice heavy with worry. Adaeze's eyes hardened. Let him come. We have much to discuss." She walked out into the bright afternoon sun, the cowrie shells heavy in her hand, but her heart somehow lighter than it had been in days. At least now she knew the truth. At least now she could save her daughter. What came after that, she would face when the time came. But as she walked toward the medicine man's village, one thought kept circling in her mind like a vulture over carrion. How many other secrets was Obi hiding? And what kind of man could sleep peacefully on top of a fortune while his child died just feet away? The answers to those questions, Adaeze suspected, would hurt far more than the betrayal she had already discovered. But she was done being blind. She was done being lied to. Whatever happened next, she would face it with her eyes wide open. The medicine man's hut sat at the edge of his village, marked by the dried herbs hanging from the rafters and the smell of healing smoke that drifted through the air. Adaeze had been there once before, years ago, when she had trouble conceiving Chioma. The old healer had helped her then. She prayed he could help her now. "Come in, daughter of the soil," the medicine man called before she could even announce herself. His voice was rough as tree bark but not unkind. Adaeze entered the dim hut and found him sitting cross-legged on a mat, surrounded by calabashes and clay pots of various sizes. He was ancient, his face a map of wrinkles, his eyes cloudy with age, but somehow still seeing everything. "Medicine man, my daughter is very sick. She has burning fever. She cannot eat. She barely breathes." He raised one gnarled hand to stop her. "I know. The spirits told me you were coming. They showed me a mother's love stronger than a father's greed. Sit." Adaeze sat, confused by his words, but too desperate to question them. "Can you help her?" "Yes. But the cure is not cheap. 3 cowrie shells for the medicine, and you must follow my instructions exactly." "I have them." Adaeze unwrapped the cloth and placed 3 shells before him. The medicine man nodded and began gathering ingredients, roots, leaves, powders from various containers. His movements were slow but precise, the work of a lifetime of healing. "Your husband did not give you this money," he said as he worked. It wasn't a question. Adaeze felt her face grow hot. "No, medicine man. I found it. You found what was hidden. You uncovered what was meant to stay buried." He looked at her with those cloudy eyes that somehow saw too much. A man who hides his wealth from his family hides more than money. "Be careful, daughter. The truth you seek may have thorns." "I don't understand." "You will." He handed her a wrapped bundle of herbs and a small gourd of dark liquid. "Boil these leaves in clean water until the water turns brown like good earth. Give her 1 cup at sunrise, 1 at midday, 1 at sunset. The liquid in the gourd, you must rub on her chest and back before each dose. In 3 days, the fever will break. In 7 days, she will be well." "Thank you, medicine man. Thank you so much." Adaeze clutched the bundle to her chest, relief flooding through her. "Thank yourself. You are the one who had the courage to find the truth. Now you must have the courage to face it." He paused, stirring something in a clay pot. "Tell me, daughter, what will you do when your husband discovers what you have taken?" Adaeze lifted her chin. "I will tell him I saved our daughter's life with money he claimed not to have. I will tell him I know about his lies. And if he becomes angry, if he tries to punish you for defying him." She hadn't thought that far ahead. In their society, a wife who disobeyed her husband, who took from him without permission, could face serious consequences. The elders might even side with Obi if he claimed she had stolen from him. But looking at the medicine in her hands, Adaeze found she didn't care. "Then I will face his anger. But Chioma will be alive to see it." The medicine man smiled, showing gaps where teeth had once been. "You are stronger than you know, daughter. Go now. Heal your child. And when the storm comes, because it will come, remember that the strongest trees bend in the wind, but do not break." Adaeze hurried home as the sun began its descent toward the horizon. She found Mama Obi still sitting with Chioma, singing old lullabies in a cracked voice. The little girl's condition hadn't changed, but it also hadn't worsened. There was still time. Following the medicine man's instructions carefully, Adaeze prepared the first dose. The herbs filled the hut with a sharp, earthy smell. She lifted Chioma's head gently and helped her drink the brown liquid. The child grimaced at the bitter taste but swallowed. Then Adaeze rubbed the oil from the gourd on her chest and back, whispering prayers to the ancestors as she worked. "Now we wait," Mama Obi said, "and we prepare for my son's return." But Obi didn't return at sunset as expected. The sky darkened, night fell, and still he didn't come. Adaeze fed Chioma the second dose by lamplight, and the child seemed to sleep more peacefully afterward. Maybe it was wishful thinking, but Adaeze thought her daughter's skin felt slightly less hot. It wasn't until the moon was high that she heard footsteps approaching the compound. But it wasn't Obi's familiar walk. These steps were uneven, stumbling. Then came the singing, loud, off-key, unmistakably drunk. Obi appeared in the doorway of the hut, swaying on his feet, his wrapper askew. The smell of palm wine hung around him like a cloud. He looked at Adaeze with unfocused eyes and laughed. "My wife. Still awake. Still worrying. You worry too much, woman. The child will be fine. The gods will provide." He laughed again, as if he'd said something hilarious. Adaeze stood slowly, rage building in her chest like a fire. While she had been desperate, begging, searching for help, he had been drinking. While their daughter fought for her life, he had been celebrating some secret success with palm wine. "Where have you been?" she asked, her voice dangerously quiet. "Out. With friends. A man can have friends, can't he? A man can enjoy himself after working hard." Obi stumbled toward his sleeping mat, then froze. His eyes, though drunk, suddenly sharpened. He stared at the floor where his mat was displaced, at the disturbed earth visible in the lamplight. The laughter died on his face. He looked from the floor to Adaeze, and she saw the exact moment he understood what had happened. The drunkenness seemed to evaporate like morning mist. "What have you done?" His voice was low, dangerous. "I saved our daughter." Adaeze met his eyes without flinching. "I found your secret, Obi. I found the cowrie shells you buried under your sleeping place. 30 bags of them. A fortune hidden while you told me we were too poor to buy medicine for our dying child." Obi's face twisted with fury. "You had no right. That money is mine. I earned it. You had no right to touch it. I had every right." Adaeze's voice rose, matching his anger with her own. "I am your wife. Chioma is your daughter. How could you watch her suffer when you had the means to help her? What kind of man are you? What kind of wife are you, stealing from your husband, digging through his private things like a common thief?" Obi took a step toward her, his hands clenched into fists. Mama Obi stood up from beside Chioma, her old body placing itself between her son and Adaeze. "That is enough, Obi. You will not raise your hand in this house. Not while I still draw breath. This doesn't concern you, mother. Stay out of it. It concerns me very much. That is my granddaughter lying there sick. You are my son, and I love you, but what you have done is unforgivable. Hiding wealth while your child suffered? Your father would disown you." "My father is dead," Obi shouted. "And this is my house. My money. My decision. Adaeze had no right. I had every right." Adaeze interrupted, stepping around Mama Obi to face her husband directly. "I took 3 cowrie shells. 3. Out of hundreds. And I used them to buy medicine that is already helping Chioma. Look at her, Obi. Look at your daughter. She is sleeping peacefully for the first time in days. The fever is already starting to break. I saved her life with your money that you claimed didn't exist." Obi's jaw worked, but no words came out. He looked at Chioma, then away, as if the sight of her pained him. "Why?" Adaeze asked, and her voice broke. "Why hide it? Why lie? If you were saving for something, you could have told me. If you had plans for that money, we could have discussed it. But you let me beg you. You watched me cry and plead for our daughter's life while you sat on a fortune. Why, Obi? Help me understand." For a long moment, Obi said nothing. Then he walked to his disturbed sleeping area and sat down heavily. The fight seemed to drain out of him all at once. "You wouldn't understand," he said finally, his voice hollow. "Then make me understand." He was quiet for so long that Adaeze thought he wouldn't answer. Then finally he spoke. "Do you know what it's like to be born with nothing? To watch your father struggle his whole life and die poor? To see other men prosper while your family scrapes by?" His voice was bitter. "I swore I would never be like him. I swore my children would never know that kind of poverty. So I worked. I traded. I saved every cowrie shell I could get, hiding it where no one could take it, where no one could spend it on foolish things." "Medicine for your sick child is foolish?" Adaeze asked incredulously. "That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean?" "Because from where I'm standing, you chose cowrie shells over your daughter's life. You chose your secret fortune over your family. That is what happened, Obi. You cannot deny it." Obi put his head in his hands. "I was going to use it. Eventually. When the time was right. To buy land, maybe. To build a bigger house. To make sure we were secure." "Secure?" Adaeze's voice shook with emotion. "How can we ever be secure when the father of this family values money more than his own child's life? What good is land or a big house if Chioma is dead?" The word hung in the air like a curse. Dead. It was the first time either of them had spoken it aloud, and it seemed to hit Obi like a physical blow. "I didn't think," he started, then stopped. "The fever, I thought it would pass on its own. Children get sick all the time. I didn't think it was that serious." "You didn't think, or you didn't want to spend the money?" Mama Obi asked quietly. Obi had no answer for that. Adaeze walked to where Chioma slept, her heart heavy. "I don't know who you are anymore," she said without looking at her husband. "The man I married would never have done this. That man promised to cherish and protect our family. You are not that man." "Adaeze, I'm sleeping here tonight, next to our daughter. You can sleep wherever you want. Just stay away from us." She heard Obi stand up, heard his footsteps pause at the door. "This isn't over," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "No," Adaeze agreed. "It isn't. But tonight, I don't want to look at you. Tomorrow we can discuss what happens next. Tonight, I need to take care of the child you were willing to let die." Obi left without another word. Through the doorway, Adaeze could see him walking toward his mother's hut, his shoulders slumped in defeat or shame, or perhaps both. Mama Obi settled down beside Adaeze and Chioma. "You are a brave woman, my daughter," she said softly. "Whatever happens tomorrow, remember that. You are brave, and you did the right thing." Adaeze nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. She placed her hand on Chioma's forehead and felt that it was definitely cooler than before. The medicine was working. Her daughter would live. But what would be left of her marriage? What would be left of her family? Those questions would have to wait for the morning. For now, she had done what needed to be done. She had chosen her child over her husband's lies. And whatever the consequences, she knew she would make the same choice again. Morning came with the sound of roosters and the smell of cooking fires from neighboring compounds. Adaeze woke to find Chioma looking at her with clear eyes for the first time in days. "Mama, I'm hungry," the little girl said, her voice weak but unmistakably better. Tears of relief sprang to Adaeze's eyes. "Oh, my precious one. Mama will make you some soft yam. You're getting better. You're really getting better." She prepared a simple meal for Chioma. Mashed yam with a little palm oil, nothing heavy that might upset her stomach. The child ate slowly but steadily, and Adaeze felt like her heart might burst with gratitude. The medicine was working even better than she'd hoped. Mama Obi appeared at the doorway with a grave expression. "The elders want to see you," she said quietly. "Obi has called for a gathering. You must come to the village square." Adaeze's stomach dropped. She had expected Obi to be angry, but calling the elders meant he was taking this to the village council. In their tradition, the elders settled disputes between husband and wife. But they almost always sided with the husband. Almost always. "What will happen to me?" Adaeze asked, though she already knew the answer. A wife who took from her husband without permission, no matter the reason, could be punished. Sent away. Disgraced. I don't know my daughter, but I will speak for you. I will tell the truth about what my son has done. Adaeze dressed carefully in her best wrapper and head tie. If she was going to face judgment, she would do it with dignity. She gave Chioma another dose of medicine, grateful that her daughter's improvement was obvious. That, at least, would prove she had done the right thing. The village square was already crowded when she arrived. It seemed everyone had come to witness this drama. Obi stood near the center, looking haggard and ashamed, or perhaps just tired. The 5 village elders sat on wooden stools in a semicircle, their faces stern and weathered. Elder Obinna, the oldest, spoke first. Adaeze, wife of Obi, you stand accused of stealing from your husband. 3 cowrie shells taken without permission from his personal savings. How do you answer this charge? Adaeze lifted her chin. I took the cowrie shells to buy medicine for our daughter Chioma, who is dying of fever. I asked my husband for help, and he told me he had no money. He claimed we were too poor to afford treatment. So, I found another way. A murmur ran through the crowd. Elder Obinna raised his hand for silence. That is still theft, daughter. A wife cannot take what belongs to her husband, even for a good reason. You should have obeyed your husband's decision. Even if that decision meant watching our child die. That is not for you to judge. The husband is the head of the household. Adaeze felt anger rising in her chest, but before she could respond, Mama Obi stepped forward. Elders, with respect, there is more to this story. My son has been deceiving his wife for years. He is not 3 cowrie shells, but hundreds, thousands, buried beneath his sleeping place. A fortune hidden while he told his wife they were poor, while he let his daughter suffer without treatment. Shocked whispers erupted from the crowd. The elders looked at Obi, who suddenly found the ground very interesting. Is this true? Elder Obinna demanded. Obi, have you been hiding wealth from your family? Obi's jaw worked, but Mama Obi continued before he could answer. I saw it with my own eyes, elders. 30 bags of cowrie shells, carefully hidden. Enough to buy land, build houses, live like wealthy men. And he let his daughter burn with fever, claiming poverty. Obi, Elder Obinna's voice was sharp. Speak. Is your mother lying? No, Elder. Obi's voice was barely audible. It's true. I have been saving money for my trading business. But it was for our future, for our security. Security? Another elder, Udoka, stood up, his face red with anger. What security is there for a child who dies because her father was too greedy to pay for medicine? What future do you secure by lying to your wife? I didn't mean for it to go this far. Obi protested weakly. I thought Chioma would get better on her own. I didn't know. You didn't know because you didn't care? The voice came from the crowd. Adaeze turned to see Ikenna pushing his way forward. Elders, my brother borrowed money from me just 2 months ago. He has resources. He has always had resources. But he hoards them like a dragon hoarding gold. His wife shouldn't be punished for saving her child. My brother should be punished for failing his family. More voices joined in, neighbors sharing stories of Obi's secretive behavior, his mysterious wealth, his refusal to help even his own relatives in need. The tide was turning, and Adaeze could see the horror dawning on Obi's face as he realized what was happening. He wasn't the victim here. He was the accused. Elder Obinna held up his hand for silence. He looked at Obi with disgust, then at Adaeze with something like respect. This is a dark thing you have done, Obi, son of Eze. You have violated the sacred trust between husband and wife, between father and child. A man who cannot provide for his family when he has the means is no man at all. He is worse than a thief. He is a betrayer of his own blood. But elders, Obi started. Silence. Elder Obinna's voice cracked like thunder. You will hear our judgment. Adaeze, daughter of the soil, you acted out of love and desperation to save your child. While technically you took what was not yours, you did so only after your husband failed in his most basic duty as a father. You are not guilty in our eyes. You are a mother who did what mothers do, protect their children at any cost. Adaeze felt her knees weaken with relief. She wasn't going to be punished. She wasn't going to be sent away. As for you, Obi, Elder Udoka said, his voice cold as stone, you have brought shame to your father's name and disgrace to this village. What do you have to say for yourself? Obi looked up, and Adaeze saw something in his eyes she'd never seen before. Genuine remorse. Real shame. Elders, I was wrong. I was foolish and greedy. I convinced myself I was being wise, saving for the future, but I see now that I was just scared. Scared of being poor like my father. Scared of losing what I had accumulated. And that fear made me into someone I don't recognize. Someone who could watch his own daughter suffer and do nothing. He turned to Adaeze, and she saw tears on his face. I'm sorry. I know those words aren't enough. I know I've broken something between us that may never heal. But I am deeply, truly sorry. You were right about everything. I chose money over our daughter. I chose my fear over my family. And I will regret it for the rest of my life. Adaeze didn't know what to say. Part of her wanted to forgive him, to believe that this moment of clarity meant he had changed. But a larger part of her remembered the cold calculation in his eyes when she had begged for help, the way he could drink palm wine while Chioma fought for breath. Elder Obinis spoke again. Obi, here is our judgment. You will give your wife control of half your savings to use for the family's needs as she sees fit. You will provide full accounting of all your business dealings to the council. And you will work to repair the trust you have destroyed, though we suspect that will be the hardest task of all. If you fail in any of these duties, you will be banished from this village. Do you accept our judgment? Yes, Elder. I accept. Good. This gathering is ended. Go home, all of you. The crowd dispersed slowly, everyone talking at once about what they had witnessed. Adaeze stood still, trying to process everything that had happened. She had come expecting judgment and left vindicated. But vindication felt hollow somehow. Her marriage was broken. That was the real truth of this day. Mama Obi took her arm gently. Come, daughter. Let's go home to Chioma. She needs you. But before they could leave, Obi approached, hesitant, broken. Adaeze, please. Can we talk? She looked at him, really looked at him, and saw a stranger wearing her husband's face. What is there to say, Obi? The elders have spoken. You'll give me half the money. We'll continue living together, because that's what married people do. But the trust is gone. The love. I don't know if that can survive this. I know. I know I've destroyed everything. But please, give me a chance to fix this. To be the man I should have been all along. For Chioma's sake, if not for mine.
Adaeze thought about that.
About Chioma, who was getting better thanks to medicine bought with her father's hidden money. About the life they had built together, flawed as it was. About whether some betrayals could ever truly be forgiven. I'll think about it, she said finally. But Obi, understand this. I will never be that helpless woman again. I will never beg you for what my daughter needs. I will never trust you blindly. If we continue this marriage, it will be on different terms. Equal terms. Or it won't be at all. I understand. Whatever terms you set, I'll accept them. I don't want to lose you both. You already lost parts of us, Adaeze said quietly. The parts that believed in you completely. Those are gone. Whether we can build something new from what's left, time will tell. She walked away then, leaving Obi standing in the village square alone with his shame and his regrets. Mama Obi walked beside her in comfortable silence until they reached their compound. Inside the hut, Chioma was awake, playing weakly with a corn husk doll. Her fever was definitely breaking. In a few days, she would be running around like normal, laughing and singing, alive. That was what mattered most. Adaeze had saved her daughter. She had uncovered the truth. She had stood up for herself and her child when no one else would. Everything else, the broken trust, the uncertain future, the question of whether her marriage could survive, those were problems for tomorrow. Today, her daughter was alive. Today, she had won. And as Chioma looked up at her with those bright, recovering eyes and smiled, Adaeze knew that whatever happened next, she had made the right choice. Some betrayals couldn't be forgiven. Some wounds couldn't be healed. But some battles were worth fighting, no matter the cost. She had fought for her daughter's life and won. Everything else would fall into place as it was meant to. 3 months later, Chioma ran through the compound, healthy and laughing. The medicine had worked completely, leaving her stronger than before. Adaeze watched her play, a small smile on her face. Obi had kept his promises to the elders. He had given her control of half the cowrie shells and accounted for all his business dealings. He worked hard to regain her trust, bringing home his earnings, consulting her on decisions, trying to be the husband and father he should have been all along. But something had changed between them, something fundamental. Adaeze no longer saw him as her protector or provider. She saw him as a partner who had to earn her respect every day. And some nights, when she lay awake in the darkness, she wondered if that was enough. The cowrie shells still sat buried beneath their hut, but now Adaeze knew exactly where they were and how many. She kept careful count, not because she didn't trust Obi, though she did not completely, but because she had learned an important lesson. The greatest treasure wasn't gold or cowrie shells or land or houses. The greatest treasure was knowing your own worth and being willing to fight for what truly mattered. Everything else was just decoration. And as Chioma's laughter filled the air, Adaeze knew she would make the same choice again, 1,000 times over. Some prices were worth paying. Some truths were worth uncovering, no matter how much they hurt. She had uncovered 30 bags of cowrie shells beneath her husband's mattress. But she had discovered something far more valuable, her own strength, her own courage, and her own unbreakable will to protect those she loved. That discovery had cost her a marriage built on illusions. But it had given her a future built on truth. And in the end, truth was the only foundation worth standing on.